Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. It's September the 15th, and we have another important week ahead of us, obviously, with the Fed. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. I want to just give everyone maybe like one more minute to log in before we get started here on a Monday. But it sounds like audio and visual is good for everybody, so thank you all for participating in that sort of audio and visual test. I always appreciate that. I think that's really good. All right. All right, very good. Cool. All right, let's get started here. Again, good morning, everyone. It's Serge Berker here from thestudytrader.com. This is our morning call. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so going through some of the top things on our notepad. If you're here for the first time, please make sure that you give us subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up like. That always really helps the algorithms being able to pick us up. Also leave some comments here and there. Again, all that helps us to be able to continue to do this morning call here for you guys. Again, if you're here for the first time, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's obviously free. It just gives you an opportunity to be alerted in real time when we go live, when we have new podcasts, new charts, new ideas, and so on and so forth. So, let's first start off. We're going to talk about the news here quickly. We've got a bit of a newsy morning at number one. We've got the Fed on Wednesday. I want to talk about what the market kind of looks like going into the Fed, what the risks and the opportunities might be. And then I want to start talking a little bit about the second half of September and what that tends to look like. And then we'll go through a couple of stocks that I've also mentioned over the weekend to some of our clients, and I want to highlight at least some of them here as well. So that's the plan here for the next, let's call it 10 to 15 minutes. First of all, from a calendar perspective, I think everyone knows it. We've got a busy week this week with the Fed. And that, I think, is going to be something that that will be sort of the tale of two tapes for this week. We're coming into this week with, again, a market that is largely on a year-to-date basis led by hard assets. We think that's going to continue because we have a Fed that's willing to cut rates into a pretty hot economy. And that's just going to be more inflationary, and that will speak more and more for gold and maybe things like Bitcoin. That's a different thing, but hard assets in general. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing here, looking at here going forward. In terms of the timing here, we have a market that is coming into this week rather hot, and when you have sort of the market kind of, I don't want to front running as the right terminology, but when you have a market, this is the S&P 500 coming into an important Fed decision at this kind of steep incline, and again, we're not trying to be bearish, we're just trying to see both sides. There is always going to be some risk of disappointment, and that is, again, not being bearish. It's just risk management, and so we just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. There is risk of a pullback. There always is, but let's first talk about the seasonality aspect, which, as I always like to say, is a bull market phenomena, but here it is nonetheless. So when we talk about seasonality, if you guys focus on that part right there, this is the month of September. And we've actually been talking about this to a lot of clients, particularly on the investment advisory side, where we can actually give advice at Blue Marlin advice to people as opposed to just research and education. But one of the things that we're talking to people about is if you look at it purely from a seasonality perspective, and again, seasonality is an oversimplification, but it does tend to work quite well in bull markets. You will notice that the second half of September, which we're now essentially entering as of today, tends to be one of the weakest parts of the year. The first part of September tends to be quite complacent. People are coming back from their summer vacation. Stateside it's Labor Day. In Europe, it's coming back from from sort of late summer vacation, so on and so forth. And typically the first part of September is a bit slow, and then the Fed decision around that sort of time frame tends to be when things tend to get a bit more volatile. And you can see that right here. If you look at this chart, there is September at the bottom. I'm trying to circle this, and you can see what happens around the midpoint in September. So if there is going to be some volatility, the likelihood of it happening between now and the next couple of weeks, it doesn't have to happen this week. Last year it didn't start until we had a bit of a pullback in like late October heading into the election. That was an election year, so maybe that was a bit different. But from a timing perspective, I think we're now at the point where the reality of some volatility is getting very on point. It can happen in August. It didn't happen in August this year. Didn't happen in early September. But now we're getting to the point where this could happen, and maybe we see. Listen, I don't know. I think a 5 to 10% pullback in the S&P would be very healthy. Whether we get that or not is written in the stars. I will be following our momentum indicator, the TST Trender, which I should point out, by the way, still has the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, all those indices still in bullish momentum, right? So the momentum has not changed. You can see we had bearish momentum heading into February, and then we've had bullish momentum ever since basically April 29th, April 30th. That has not changed, but that can change, and it probably will change, a couple times here before the end of the year. Maybe some sort of a bearish momentum for a while, followed by a bullish momentum at the year, because people are underperforming, the indices that are basically just a few stocks. So that's what's going on there. Now, before we start talking about a couple of individual stocks, I want to highlight Moderna. I want to look at MNST, and I do want to point out what's going on with Ethereum versus Bitcoin, because it's a risk barometer. A little housekeeping thing. For everyone that's joining us in Trade-a-thon, which is our live trading and morning routine thing we're doing here in September, this morning I'm going to have to keep it to maybe 15 minutes, and we're actually going to start 5 minutes early. So if you're in Trade-a-thon and you're joining us, we're going to start about 5 minutes early today and go about 15 minutes, very short today, because I have another commitment I have to do at the top of the hour. Yeah, that's right. I see someone actually mentioning it. I have a commitment at the top of the hours I have to get to. We're going to be back on the regular schedule as of tomorrow, Tuesday, in Trade-a-thon. We're going to go, half an hour to an hour, which we've done every morning now, and I think it's really been helpful. But today I'm going to have to keep it tight. It's not a big deal because it's Monday. We're heading into the Fed, but we're going to go through our morning routine in a shorter fashion this morning, which I think is actually very beneficial. So that's that. Let's talk about one stock that I think is one that I would encourage everyone to be kind of aware of, and that's Moderna. I dropped a couple of charts to our clients over the weekend. I'm going to, a whole bunch of them actually. I'll show you one of them or a couple of them here to start. So if you look at something called Moderna, which if you might remember, they made vaccines and stuff, or they make vaccines. mRNA is the ticker symbol for that. And what you'll see is that the stock has essentially fully retraced its rally since 2020, right? So it had the COVID rally from, sort of like the $20 area to 300 and almost to 400 and something. And we're now back at that level. That's quite a ride. And this is where momentum, by the way, as a trading factor and trend is incredibly important. That's why we have this process, right? Not everything goes to the up and to the right all the time, like our few, mega cap tech stocks that have that basically hijacked everyone's retirement accounts. And I wish you guys would wake up to that, by the way. It's a big deal. But Moderna has round trip now. In the short term, Moderna is still actually in a situation where it could still go lower. If we look at Moderna from a short-term perspective and from a momentum perspective, more importantly, short-term momentum, you'll see that the latest signal, which is the one that came on August 1st, remains Moderna in bearish momentum. So this is one, and it's very close to breaking support if we want to be sort of a bit oversimplistic on it. But we currently have a trailing stop in Moderna. It's reached its free profit target already. We've got a trailing stop currently around $25.50. So that's what we're looking at now as a trailing stop. So I thought I would point that one out. Maybe some of you find that helpful. One more stock I'd like to point out is MNST. It's also known as Monster Energy, and I'm going to show you that one here from a trend following perspective. This is a stock, or Monster Beverage actually is the company called. This is MNST. And I'm showing it because it's gone through a very, I think, clear and important phase transition where you can see the stock went from being a bearish trend to a neutral trend and then started a new bullish trend in February of this year. And that remains intact. And in fact, we just received a new trend following buy signal on Friday in MNST. And the stock, since it's been in a bullish trend, is up 25%. So MNST is an interesting one. If you're over in our Trade Ops members area, my colleague Christian is going to be posting the profit targets and trailing stops there today as well. And then the other chart that I want to point out is really what's going on in the world of crypto. If you guys go and check out the YouTube channel, what you'll find is I posted a YouTube short on the correlation of Dogecoin and Tesla. Go have a look at that. In fact, I'm going to quickly drop it in here in our chat here right now. Let me see if I can do that. Here we go. So this is this here. So after we're done here, go watch this YouTube short. It's like a 1-minute video or less or something that I made this morning or made over the weekend because of an observation that I had between Dogecoin and Tesla. But I think it'll help you understand what's going on. When you see something like Tesla and Dogecoin going in the same direction, and they're not going to have to go in the same direction every single day, but broadly speaking, it speaks to us to more liquidity in the system, right? More fiscal policy, loosening monetary policy, and that's really what's at the heart of this. So this morning Tesla's up once again. I think Dogecoin is probably going to do is probably going to spike as well at some point again. So watch that. And this is a bit crazy. I'm not a Dogecoin kind of person, but the correlations are undeniable between these two things. Last but not least, let's talk quickly about Ethereum and Bitcoin, and that's not because this is turning into a crypto show, so you can save your 2-page hate mail on that. This is a chart I've been showing for months and months, but this is a long-term chart of Ethereum versus Bitcoin, or ETF versus the IBIT ETF, for example. And you can see that Ethereum has been underperforming Bitcoin for years. And it finally reached that inflection point when it started breaking out early summer, so in June of this year, versus Bitcoin. So we continue to see that trend happening. Ethereum, for example, just so you can see this, is still doing better than Bitcoin here. That's what this is, this relative chart, and we'll see if it continues. But that breakout has happened at an important point, so thought I would point this one out as well. Mason wants to look at silver. I'm not quite sure exactly what the question is. It's just silver ? What I can tell you about silver is that it remains in a bullish trend, which is the most important thing for us. I'll just show you the SLV ETF. Silver remains in a bullish trend since we've had it in the latest bullish trend, which started in April. Silver, the SLV ETF is up about 37%. So we went through a bit of a pause. You can see that the longer term bullish trend, it only got interrupted for like a few days here and there. But since it started back in April or March of 2024, silver's up about almost 70%. Gold, by the way, since it's been in a bullish trend since January of 24, is up about 80%. And so that's where we're at. So if you are in our trade-a-thon, which we're going to start about 5 minutes early today because I have a commitment at the top of the hour I have to do. We're going to go quick today, about 10-15 minutes in trade-a-thon. We'll be back on our extended version of it starting tomorrow. But it is a Monday. There's not really all that much to do. So I'm going to give you guys a short version this morning of how to kind of go through our morning routine, which I actually think will be very helpful for everyone. So we'll see all of you guys that are in trade-a-thon in 20 minutes, and we'll be in trade ops as well. So we'll get this week started. Again, from a timing perspective this week, expect it to be a tale of two halves, right? I think until we get to the Fed meeting on Wednesday, there'll be stuff to do, but I think the clear moves will happen once we get to Wednesday. So just kind of keep that in mind. So that's it for now. Have a good start to the week, and all of you guys that are Trade-a-thon members, will see you in about 20 minutes over there. Take care.